telling you, we have 3 listeners on YouTube.
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to Philo Sophia, where knowledge is our passion. Join Trevor and Alfredo as they explore a range of topics ranging from religion to technology to science. Get ready for thought-provoking discussions and a journey of learning. This is Philo Sophia. All right, Alfredo, what did you think about that piece of text I just read?
Well, you know, the way you read it, makes it even better. I'm reading it. It's like, wait a minute. It sounds like what I'm. Oh, wait, it is what I'm reading. I love it.
It is. I did not write that. That
AI?
was written by AI. That's an AI intro.
Dude, it's taken off quick.
I've been kind of dismissive of this ChatGPT thing.
Okay.
But I was
what is
like,
that?
it's like the new, people are saying it's the new internet. Like it's going to revolutionize the world just like the internet did. It's this computer you can talk to and it will do stuff for you. You can ask it to write a paper. You can ask it to write a script. You can ask it to code a website and say, I don't like it like that. Yeah. So like, let me give you an example. I say to it in the top, I need a podcast intro script about 10 seconds long. What do you need from me? Name, brief description, host name, any special theme. So I give it 1-2 sentences. It says, here's a 10-second script. And
I was just joking. Actually, you used AI?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, this is good, but I want to modify the last sentence. Can you modify the last sentence to reflect the breadth of topics we covered? Boom. It's instant. I'll show it to you in a second. I don't like the last sentence. Please modify. That modifies it. It's too long. Can you remove a sentence but keep the same message? Boom. Add the names of the co-hosts. Boom. That's it. And that's so. Think of something you want to ask. I mean, we could ask it to write the introductory paragraph of your paper. We could ask it.
No way.
Yeah. You could ask it to write lyrics to a song. It's going to say, well, what style, what tempo, what.
That's crazy.
You can ask it questions about people. You can get in arguments with it. I got in an argument about aging research with it earlier.
And what did it say?
Well, I asked it, I said, what specific molecular pathways do you believe are involved with lifestyle-derived lifespan extension? And so it gives me all of the correct ones. IGF insulin signaling, mTOR, sirtuins, inflammation, but it mentions resveratrol, which is kind of controversial. And I say, is it necessary? Go ahead.
It is not controversial when it's in wine.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that. French wine, especially. I say, is it not necessary for you to cite your sources when you give me this information? And it says, yes, it's always good practice, but this is common knowledge, not taken from any specific piece of literature. So I say, it's not common knowledge. Resveratrol was popularized by David Sinclair and has been criticized by many people. You're reporting it as common knowledge. And it says, yes, it's right. It's true that resveratrol has been the subject of, much research. Some studies suggest.
It apologized?
Yeah. And it says a lot of the evidence is in mice, and mice evidence doesn't necessarily translate to humans. So all the real critiques, right?
What?
And I'm like, man, that's impressive. How do you rank the validity of your sources if you find 2 papers with different findings? And it tells me, well, I look at the study design. I see, were high scientific standards employed? Was a control used? Was the sample size large enough? Conflicts of interest, the level of disagreement in the field. It's wild.
Amazing.
It's wild. Yeah.
How? What's the turnaround? Like, for instance, when you ask something, when did you get the reply?
Immediately. Think of a question.
No way.
Yeah. My wife is she's trying to sell these purses she has online. And she says, hey, give me, a 30-second script to convince someone to spend $600 on a Louis Vuitton bag. So that's what we'll ask it. So give me a 30-second pitch that I can use to convince someone to buy a $600. I have a typo, but it can usually handle a lot of typos. A $600 Louis. Oh man, how do you spell Vuitton? I think like that. So give me a 30-second pitch that I can use to convince someone to buy. So I'm going to hit enter.
Oh, that's wild.
So I suggest focusing on highlighting the quality, craftsmanship, attention to detail that goes into making it back.
So
Number
it
one,
gives you an
yeah.
alternative response, like, hey, this is how you can. Wow.
So it gives me like 5 different things. Now, this is a different answer than it gave me earlier. Earlier, it actually gave me a 30-second script. So something about the way I asked the question,
I see.
it didn't like. Maybe because I used the word convince, but can you help me write an introductory paragraph for a scientific manuscript I am writing? Sure. I'd be happy to help you write an introductory paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Please provide some background information, your hypothesis,
Oh no.
the research. So, and it will just spit it out immediately. And it's surprisingly good. And then you can say, hey, can you add some more
Wow.
jargon, like scientific words like XYZ? Can you change the style to be a lower level of understanding or higher? You can just talk to it for hours.
I can see why people are losing their minds.
Yeah. And what's crazy
And
is now they have. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say now they have AI video, so they can have a person reading an AI generated script that looks like a real human being.
That is amazing.
So a lot of videos on YouTube right now are completely computer generated.
That's I don't know what to make of that. I've seen paintings. In fact, one of the paintings, they had a competition somewhere a few months ago, and the rendition that the AI did won the competition, of course, over humans. And everyone was not happy about that. But it can do a lot of things. Wow.
Yeah,
but this is nice.
There's a lot of
This is
arguments
cool.
about, this is pulling this information from somewhere and presenting it as its own. So, what are the plagiarism aspects of this?
Right.
That sort of thing. But same with art, because it's pulling pieces of art that it finds from the internet and merging them. So same with music. You can do AI generated music. But anyway, so that was a long aside to explain
cool.
where that intro came from that I'll probably never read again. And welcome to hopefully our 1 or 2 maybe new listeners from Grimerica. And I already received an Instagram message that I think highlights a problem, though, with our podcast, which is they're like, hey, there's 12 different Philo Sophia podcasts. So how do we,
Mm-hmm.
So when I registered this name, there was only one other one, and it hadn't posted in a year. But now there are
It took
several.
that long? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now there are many. So
At this point, are we going to stay OG or?
I think we stay OG and just
I think so.
have to. It's 2 words. I made it 2 words, and if you actually type it in as 2 words, we pop up first.
Okay.
But
Without a hyphen, just 2 separate
right,
words.
just Philo Sophia. So I'll just have to clarify that, I guess. But yeah, man. So
That's good. Where
ha-
can I find your interview from? Well, you just said it, I think.
yeah, you can go to the podcast app and search Grimerica. I can't listen to it.
No?
I listened to the intro, which they talked
Why?
about some crazy stuff in the intro that
Why can't you listen to it?
I don't know. You hear the sound of your voice and you're like, oh, and then since I was on, I've been thinking about like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have said it that way. Like you have all these things you want to talk about, but then just in the natural flow of conversation, you kind of say things backwards or you're missing context and you're like, I just don't want to listen. But but I've gotten some nice messages and stuff.
But you listen to ours though, yeah.
I can listen to hours. Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't bother me as much.
I guess it's like acting. A lot of actors, they don't really look at their own performances.
Yeah.
They just hate it. Or singing too. A lot of musicians, they don't care. It's like just at that moment, and that's it. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
We're a lot more relaxed here than I was then too. So
Plus, we know each other for so long.
Yeah. I'm probably more myself here, so I don't mind listening to myself be myself, but listening to myself be trying to be an expert, you know. I'm not sure.
Trying to be an expert. We're an expert, but this is not what this podcast is
Yeah.
for.
I heard you had a crazy
Which
day
is kind
today.
of cool. Yeah, which is kind of cool. I think the fact that we can talk about things that are not our expertise, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's good because the other stuff will get. We're supposed to be the expert
Yeah.
content
It's
expert on that.
low
We are.
risk. I think it's pretty clear that we're out of our
But
depths
this is
here.
not what
so-
it's all about. This is where
Yeah.
you take your sandals off, right? You lean back, relax, and just play with thoughts.
It's kind of therapeutic. I think it's probably more for me than any desire to build a huge audience or anything. Although that would be cool. Don't get me wrong. But I
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's fun.
not
If
a
you like
huge
the sound of our
audience.
voice,
Yeah.
but it comes responsibility and yeah.
What would be cool would be to have some interesting guests and meet people that way. We have
Yes.
2 lined up. You have 1 lined up potentially. So tomorrow we're interviewing my friend who I think we're going to call Anonymous Al. Anonymous AL.
that.
Because we might be talking about some some topics that are a little, he may not necessarily want people to know that he believes,
Okay.
we've mentioned it already, but flat earth, space is fake, the age of the earth.
That'll be a cool idea to people show up with their thoughts and not necessarily expose themselves.
Yeah, that's fine. And
I'm okay with that.
yeah, you can certainly take more risks that way with your ideas, if you're anonymous. So, and then I'd like to get
Right.
he's my dad's best friend from when they were kids, and he's led, in my opinion, one of the more interesting lives of many of the, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that I know well who's had a more interesting set of life experiences. So he probably will come on the week after, unless you have someone you want to put in there. He
No.
he has a 400-acre ranch out in the middle of nowhere. That's a hot springs resort that people fly into. He's got a big runway,
Nice.
and every room has like a private mineral tub of water that bubbles up out of the ground, and amazing night watching because there's no civilization around. And he's seen, UFOs. He's been interviewed by Coast to Coast, which is like this old. Have you heard of it, Coast to Coast? Mm-hmm. It's it's this old like supernatural paranormal type of radio show, and he gets grants from the state to build like geothermal power plants on his property. He's done a lot of cool stuff. So,
Oh wow.
So, and he's been all over India and all those areas. He's very interested into Eastern tradition, and he's, very deeply religious and Christian. So it has a lot of interesting perspective. So that'll be 2 weeks from now.
Oh, that sounds fun. He sounds like a perfect guest.
I guess not 8 days. It'll be 8 days from now. And then tomorrow will be, I'm not sure if it will be a flat earth debate because my friend's kind of unsure if he really wants to be the flat earth, but it will be something along those lines. So
Yeah, whatever he feels like sharing with us, that'll be great. I wonder if he's your friend, the one
Tomorrow,
that's
yeah.
how about the next week?
it's actually he is my friend. I've always called him my uncle, but he's actually my dad's friend.
We'll call him your uncle.
Yeah.
We'll call him Dio.
Yeah,
that's
Dio.
fine. I wonder if he's gonna see the green comet that's in the night sky now.
If he's in a location that can see it, he'll see it because it's very, very dark in his area.
Dude, that's nice. We're supposed to be watching it in the northern hemisphere. Be able to watch it in the northern hemisphere, actually.
It's okay. Then it's honestly a place I would recommend anyone going to. It's called Surprise Valley Hot Springs, and it's like not the Ritz, but it's really nice. It's like every room is custom. It's got natural healing waters that you can soak in all day.
Can you remind me of the state?
It's in
Where is it?
California. Yeah.
Here in Cali.
Yeah.
Northern, central?
It's like on the Nevada, Oregon, California border. So
Up there.
top right.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Hey, there's magic happening up there.
He sees
all
all
the
kind
time.
of crazy like test aircraft and stuff that coming from
That's
Nevada,
awesome. That's
and
awesome.
surrounded by dry lake beds. So they do land speed
Oh,
records out
nice.
there. Yeah, it's really cool. So
Isn't that where we have the sequoia trees, like one of the oldest trees, one of the biggest
maybe,
up there?
I think
Yeah.
he's above that. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not
Above
sure.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
I thought it'd be cool. But tonight, I think we're talking about Lilith. Is that correct?
Are we, Trevor? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Let
That's
me
a tough one.
let's ask ChatGPT what it thinks about Lilith.
Let's do it.
Who is Lilith from? Would you call it Jewish folklore?
Or yeah, or myth.
Because she's not really in the Bible, right? Or is she? Okay.
Correct. There it is.
Okay, I'll read it. So, oh boy, it's getting pretty long here.
Oh, it's gonna get longer.
So you know who's really worried about this particular piece of software is Google, because in a lot of ways it's better than a search engine. But anyway, so Lilith is a figure in Jewish folklore. She is mentioned in a number of ancient Jewish texts and is often described as a female demon or monster.
Yikes.
According to some interpretations, Lilith was created at the same time as Adam and was his first wife. However,
There you go.
she was cast out of the Garden of Eden because she refused to submit to Adam and instead sought independence. In later Jewish folklore, Lilith became associated with evil and was depicted as a seductress who preyed on newborn infants and caused harm to pregnant women. The character of Lilith has been interpreted and reinterpreted over the centuries and remains a subject of fascination in both religious and secular contexts. How did ChatGPT do?
Really good for such a broad concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, really, really good. I can see what it gather information from a lot of different sources and then just synthesize
Yeah.
everything.
I kind of suspect that's really all it does. Is it kind of does its own little Google search and then mashes it all
But
together?
but the speed and at the way it writes and the way it conveys the ideas is like, I wonder if it knows who it is talking to. I don't know what to call it, he or she. You know what I'm saying?
I've had some of those conversations with it. It's kind of interesting.
But let's just do it.
What's cool about it is it remembers your conversation, so you can, reference earlier things. Like I can say, "Is she actually?"
Is it because you log in, like you created an account? Oh, okay.
Like I just
That's
typed.
awesome.
I just typed, "Is she actually mentioned in the Bible?"
It's gonna say no, just Jewish.
Lilith is not
Text.
mentioned in the Bible. Her
Right.
origin as a figure, although I have read she is mentioned once in Isaiah, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
But not under that same name.
she's called the Lilith, and it's some type of creature or something. But okay, her origin as a figure in Jewish folklore predates the canonization of the Hebrew Bible and is not a part of official scripture. She appears in a number of extra biblical texts, including the Babylonian Talmud, the Alphabet of Ben Sirah, and various midrashic works. Despite her absence from the Bible, she's become an enduring figure in Jewish folklore and blah, 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 blah.
Kabbalah, everywhere. She's everywhere. A lot of religions are based on her, like the goddess, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, since the beginning of time. Basically, she was Eve version 1, and she did not submit to, exactly what it says here, to Adam's control, and so she's what was casted, and Adam was kept in the garden.
I was reading that there's like some controversy that there's a woman mentioned early in Genesis that isn't mentioned by the name of Eve specifically. And then Eve is mentioned later. And so the current interpretation is that, well, they're both referring to Eve. But people who think that Lilith was at some point a part of the broader scope of biblical text think that it's actually referring to Lilith, like you're saying, and she was cast out and 3 angels were sent to bring her back or something like that.
Right. Imagine though talking stuff like this to someone who follows the Torah or the Bible to the letter.
Would
or
it
is
would not go over well, I assume.
no, yeah, it's yeah. It's interesting though.
I
What's
mean,
out there?
yeah, it is. I don't know what to make of that, because it's all we there was all of these texts and they got kind of
Hmm.
filtered down into,
Hmm.
the current version of the Bible. So it's like, who's to say these other texts, I mean, they all kind of came from the same body of work, of story, of folklore, of
Right.
scriptures, So
Hmm.
what is it about that process? I mean, is that process supposed to be like that selection supposed to be what makes it the word of God? Like somehow that selection process is actually
The Word
how.
of God.
Yeah,
You, the, well, that's where you take the leap of faith.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's where you take the leap of faith, and it was designed this way, and it was designed this way, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the living Word of God, and what we have right now is what we believe in. And so, and it's funny, it's interesting, not funny, but interesting how even in the Bible says that's it says this that no one should take a little period or add something to the word, otherwise that'll be like a really
Mm,
bad thing to do. Yeah, um, because it was designed this way.
that's
Kind
interesting.
of interesting stuff. Yeah, kind of interesting stuff. It's just when I saw that, and I saw the Babylon and what they believe in, and all this new religions based on her, and how we, basically, I don't want to say this, but she was the first rebel
Mm,
against the conventional design.
hmm.
Hmm. I don't know if that ended well with her, but if you go that route, and she was casted. But then again, I've heard also that it was the the Bible was basically, well, the first five books, it's male oriented, right?
Mm.
That's why it
Yeah,
was written that way.
I was reading that a lot of feminist movements have kind of tried to sort of reimagine Lilith as like the first feminist, because she didn't want to be controlled by Adam.
Right.
It's kind of interesting, and I guess that whole story is that they were both created from the same thing, whereas Eve wasn't. She was created from
That is
Adam.
correct. And then it says right there to help him or assist him.
Right.
Literally says that.
Huh.
Yeah. As soon as she and then God doesn't mention by her name at all. Just this is Adam. Do whatever you want with her. You name her. I mean, he was naming everything else.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't. Yeah, it says take this as a woman because it came out of a man, but God never gave her the name Eve. It was Adam.
Yeah, I can certainly see why, as a woman,
I,
you might read that and be like, I don't know how
oh
I feel
yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah. And we love women. God knows, we don't want all men in this earth. It'll be
Oh my
not
gosh.
good news. Yeah, no.
Sounds awful.
Oh no, yeah. Take me away. I want to go to Mars.
So
But yeah,
if like you're saying, like that would be really taboo to bring this story up with someone who's really
it's a good
orthodox.
conversation starter. And remember, discussions and talks like this really helps the person listening to it to read more, right?
Yeah.
Like if you know your faith and your core, then just read a little bit more, and then that's that.
Are things like
It should affirm your faith more. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Are things like the book of Enoch kind of viewed the same way? Like that.
Same way. Same. Anything that is not in the Bible. In fact, if you people who read the Bible from Catholicism, the Catholic Bible, they're going to say that the Protestant Bible that you and I know, it's not the real Bible. You
Hmm.
see? So, and they have it has, that Bible has books that is not in your conventional Bible, like on the King James or NIV or any of those. They have like their own Bible with their own books, actually.
It's
Isn't that something?
yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, it just
Like,
seems
which
like
reality do you want to follow?
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Let me confirmation bias. Right? Hey, it's not in this Bible, but
I mean,
your
it's really
Bible's better than
just
mine.
based on. I mean, this is true, I guess, of a lot of different religions, but it's kind of just based on where you were born and who you were born to.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
the
a
thing is that there are a lot of variations of our Christian Bible, but if you look at ancient manuscripts from China or any other like culture, that they don't have a lot of variations. Like it's been the same one.
more consistent,
Yeah.
which I don't know if that means anything, but I was having a conversation with my friend, same friend who's coming tomorrow, about he was kind of like upset about this not temple structure, this group of structures that they're building in Abu Dhabi, and it's called the Abrahamic something, Abrahamic
Hmm.
Accords Temple. I don't know. And it's a mosque, it's a synagogue, and a Christian
Oh yeah, I've
church
seen it.
all
It's
next to each other.
everything like coexist, right?
And I kind of, to be fair, I kind of knew he was upset about it, but I acted like I didn't get it. I was like, "Wow, this is amazing," and he's like, "No,
Oh, nice.
this is satanic," and I'm like, "Oh man,
Oh, okay.
I
So anything that is not from God is satanic.
well, it's
Is
like,
that what I'm hearing?
well, yeah, it was basically
cannot be
that
human?
inclusivity is satanic, and like I kind of get extreme inclusivity, right? Is not necessarily good. Like that's a problem we have in our culture, but it's just there's something about that, whether or not you're doing something satanic is based on the parents you were born to, right? Because if you're born to Muslim parents, you're probably going to be Muslim, right?
Right.
Not always. There's lots of
Right.
exceptions, but you're born to Christian parents, you're probably going to be
Right.
a Christian. You're probably not going to be Buddhist, although I guess that happens, So I'm like, man, that seems like a kind of arbitrary thing to all of a sudden now, okay, 3/4 of the world is actively satanic. I don't know. I don't know how I
Yeah.
feel. I'm not sure how that seems like a tough thing for Christians probably to reconcile. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
half of the earth is doomed to hell,
And it is. I
primarily
believe
just
that.
based on where they were born mostly. I mean, is the
Yeah.
idea that they should kind of come to the
But
truth, or
we really don't know, do we? No
yeah,
one really knows.
that's kind of my issue with it, is like, man, that's a hard stance. Like that's a serious stance to take, man.
Like I don't have a red phone right next in my office that can talk to God and He's going to answer me back. It's like, yep,
Yep, they're
all
they're
going
screwed.
down. I don't have that, so it's really open to interpretation,
Yeah.
and it will all come down to faith and your connection with God, personal connection, really. And so, again, affirmation on your faith, and be willing to listen to other people. I mean, didn't Jesus do that?
Right. Yeah. And so I said something that I don't think went over super well, but I was just like, who's to say we're not all worshiping the same thing? And that all these different
Ooh.
faiths are just different human
Ooh.
interpretations of this.
Ooh.
And the thing is, people are even saying that now about like UFOs
Yeah.
and, like paranormal things, like, and they're even extending this kind of phenomenon of UFO encounters to like, this is what ancient myths were about, like
I
fairies
can,
and
but I can
stuff.
see how your friend can see it as a satanic. Sorry to interrupt. See it as a
100%.
satanic
Yeah.
because we have to go back to Genesis again, and the first lie or the first words out of this entity's mouth were confusion. Right?
Who's
He didn't say
the serpent?
or say Satan, the serpent. He didn't say, "Hey, look at this nice looking apple or fruit from that tree." Nope. He just the first thing he said, he went to the ear, right? And then he whispered, "Is it true?" Like instill confusion,
That's interesting.
questioning God. Isn't that interesting?
I mean, this isn't necessarily intended to be a religious podcast, but I want to I want to keep talking about this because I think it's interesting. So I feel
No,
like,
it's just interesting. It's just interesting. Like you have to yeah, go ahead.
well, and I'm kind of like an outsider looking in, wanting to learn more. Oh boy, sorry, people listening. My podcast or my text messages alarm went off. I feel like Adam had the advantage of God was there with him, telling him the right path, And so I think
Was he though?
I don't know. I mean, that's, I guess, the interpretation, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
I mean, otherwise,
I
who?
mean, we want to assume that he was really close because he's like, yeah, there was no sin.
And so this is just my own lack of understanding, which
Got
I want to be fully like transparent about. So, I mean, is there parts in Genesis where God is talking to Adam? I assumed there was.
yes,
So if we can, assuming we can interpret that as God actually telling Adam something, I mean,
well, he told Adam, not Eve. He told Adam about not
Right.
to eat from that tree. He didn't tell the woman. God didn't speak to the woman.
Okay.
So he went to Adam, and if you read carefully, that's exactly what he says. And he said, "This is, the whole thing about not eating from that tree. This is why, right?" So, and then you continue to read, and where he falls asleep, and then I'm assuming it was Adam's responsibility to talk to Eve about that, and you can tell by the way Eve responded to the serpent's comment or question, because she said exactly what God said to Adam. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so which means they probably had a conversation, Adam and Eve, about, hey, let's have fun, but don't eat from that one, you know. So coming to what your comment is like, yeah, they had an open communication. Seems like that's what it reads.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like if you're this, oh man, I said I'm getting crazy here. I'm sorry, but if you are this sort of this all powerful force of you made the universe, you made everything.
Right, right.
It seems like there's one group of humans on Earth who believe they read the Quran, so they are worshiping you, but they don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. And then there's this other group who does, and it's all based on kind of like the eyewitnesses and geography at the time, right? Thousands of years ago, and how it's been passed down. So, it's like I don't really understand how there can be an expectation for everyone on Earth to know what the right thing is because they haven't really been told or shown. That's tough. I don't have an answer. I'm just wondering. Like that seems
we're just thinking here. We don't have answers.
Like that's a tough, because I try to put myself. I was asking my friend, like, do you think you would believe this if you were born in China or somewhere in Polynesia or India?
That's a tough question, because then you can ask, well, are they going to go to heaven?
Yeah. And that's like, man, if the answer is no, that's a rough. So it's really just based on where you're born. I mean, man, that
supposedly, and I don't know if this is in the Bible, but supposedly you're not going to be judged if you were never exposed to the truth, quote unquote.
Really.
Yeah, that's my concept on that. I either heard it somewhere or read it somewhere. But if someone can help us find that, that'd be great. But that's yeah. That's the concept. So you're not going to be judged for the things that you don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know.
That's interesting.
Right? Which then it conveys the idea that a lot of people will be saved based just on be good or be bad. Like, the morality of humans, don't kill. The universals, don't kill, help your neighbor.
Yeah.
Be nice. All that is free, don't go into road rage.
Sure. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's something that to most people just makes a little bit more, it's more palatable,
Exactly.
Because it's like, well, I have heard some people say like, well, God is telling you the right thing to do. It's in the Bible, but it's like, well,
if you never met God,
there's also
the Bible.
Right. But even if you have, it's like, there's also a God in the Quran. And there's a God in the Old Testament. And so depending on where you were born, you might put more faith in that particular piece of it. Like there's nothing's happened in your lifetime or your parents' lifetime or your grandparents' lifetime or your great-grandparents' lifetime to help you decide which of these is more true than the other, right?
Right. But it all comes down to love, right?
I think
so. It comes down to,
I think good and evil are real things, man. And so
right.
That's kind of the conversation I was having with him is like, I think there's a difference between someone who was born in a country and believes what their parents believe and is a good person, and someone who was, let's say, born here in America and is, an actual Satan worshiper. You know what I mean? Like, I think those are two different things. I think there's good and evil. I don't necessarily, maybe that's just a more comfortable concept for me to wrap my head around. I wouldn't put those two people in the same category, I guess is what I'm saying. And he kind of was. He was saying like inclusivity is satanic. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, okay. Maybe he'll describe it differently tomorrow. We'll see. But
yeah, that's tough, and yeah, there's already a set of belief system that it's hard to no flexibility, and that's okay, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
You just have to look at the outcomes. This is what I tell everyone: just look at the outcomes. Is your life better with that set of belief system, or no?
Sure. Yeah.
What's the end result, right? Are your relationships okay? Is your wallet okay? Is your emotional capacity okay? Is your mental game okay? Right? With that set of belief system, or is it ruining your life? Your health, right?
Yeah.
So what's the outcome?
Yeah, definitely. I suspect that he would probably, like you were saying, he would probably feel that way about like Lilith, and I don't know about the giants necessarily, because the giants are in the Bible, which you told me. I also heard there's a book of giants in addition to a book of Enoch. I heard that on a podcast. I actually listened to an interview of this guy. He's a Knights Templar researcher. He's written 15 books, and he had this idea that they actually pretty good. I mean, it's pretty solidly researched idea that the Romans and the Knights Templar were actually here in North America.
The Romans and the what?
Then the Knights Templar, like 1,500 years before like Columbus was, and that's actually why Christopher Columbus put the Knights Templar flag on his ships, was because they had good relationships with the natives, apparently. The Native Americans. That's
interesting.
Yeah, 1,500 years is way too much. It was more like a few hundred years, I think, was the time. Anyway, they have found a lot. I didn't realize how many giant skeletons have been found, but they're not like, it's like 8 feet tall.
A whole bunch.
It's like 8 feet tall, though, like 8.5 feet tall. It's not, I mean.
They're not like 10 or 12 feet.
I guess it's not a big difference.
I don't know what happened to those.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to those giants. They got washed out.
Yeah, he had a lot of ideas about that and stuff too, obviously. But I thought you'd like that. But
okay,
he would actually be a good guest for this show. I might try to email him. But
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and see AI and reading outside the box, and this is the whole point of philosophy. Just different thinking, trains of thought, right? Just different ideas. And
what
I don't know.
What do you think about AI from like a biblical perspective?
What do you think about what? I'm sorry.
AI from a religious perspective.
I thought this was a joke. The whole AI movement.
Me too. I've always thought that.
And then what Hawkins said about it, and then what Musk said about it, and all these people, you just have to be careful. And it's taken off though, because essentially what you want is to put AI into a humanoid, right? A robot.
That seems to be the direction.
That's where we and the whole point is immortality. Once we reach that point, we have reached immortality. If you can transfer your memories into whether it's organic or not, you can transfer all your memories onto a device, and you can basically live forever.
Yeah, and what do you think about that from a religious perspective?
It will it will never happen.
Okay.
Because that's the whole reason that we have fallen. So that will make the devil basically what he was saying is the truth, which we will live forever. He says like, no, you're not going to die if you eat from that.
So that's what I'm getting at. I mean, do you think that sounds like something that could rise to the threshold of like the second
Oh,
coming or end times.
that's
Like
yeah.
that
No,
seems
this
like
is
a red line, you know?
right. This is all what's pushing it forward. Transfer of memories, because what makes Trevor is your memories,
Right.
right? It's not. They can clone you, but they won't be able to transfer your memories, so it won't be you.
That's
Therefore, therefore, you won't reach immortality. But if they can somehow organically transfer your memories, just like we do right now with computers, and put it into a new system, you can live forever, man.
I have a lot of ideas about that. I don't know. Like it might be something that we just dedicate a whole episode to,
We have to. It's
but
huge.
I have a pretty good understanding of it was one of my favorite things to teach of
Nice.
neurophysiology, like at the actual
Sure.
level of the neuron.
Mhm.
And
Look at the Neuralink, right? What
yeah,
Musk is doing. Uh-huh.
and these models are trained on what are called neural networks. So they kind of impersonate the brain, a certain aspect of the brain called integration, which I'll probably maybe whenever we just you and I
For cognition or motor control?
all everything. So
Oh. Emotions and memory?
yeah, I mean that's
Wow.
so the purely scientific perspective on the brain is that it's just a it's layers of simplicity upon simplicity that turn into
Upon
complexity.
simplicity. Right.
And it's just a simple idea of integration. They're like switches or parameters, and this is what they built these models on that idea. And so I even asked it today. I'm not going to, but we won't get into a whole thing. But I want to try to ask it again.
We can finish with that.
Do you see any parallels
Oh, nice.
between the integration of graded potentials in a neuron's cell body and their ability to trigger an action potential under the right set of stimuli? Do you see any parallels between the integration of graded potentials, their ability to trigger and the neural network underlying your program?
Wow.
Let's see what it says. Yes, there are certainly parallels between the integration of graded potentials in a neuron cell body, action potential, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember. In a neuron, graded potentials are signals that are generated by the activation of ion channels in the neuron's membrane. These potentials are integrated if they reach a certain threshold. This is all really accurate. They trigger an action potential, which is a much larger signal that propagates down the axon. Similarly, the neural network underlying my program processes information by integrating information from multiple sources, computations. Okay, so is a parameter a good analog for a synapse? A parameter is like a variable. And so it says, yes, that's a simple analogy for a synapse in some contexts. In a neural network, the parameters serve a similar role and they determine the strength of connections between neurons, flow of information, blah, 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 blah. So then here's the question. If a parameter is a synapse, how many parameters do you have?
So it follows the prior conversation? Millions of parameters. Wow.
Many millions.
Oh,
The
many
exact
millions.
number is determined by the architecture of my neural network and the size of my training data set, among other factors. However, it is safe to say that I have a very large number of parameters. How many synapses in the average human brain? 100 trillion.
Jeez.
So then the question is, I think what's being argued is that because there's this idea of the Turing test. We'll have to do a whole episode on this, but there's this
Yes.
idea of the Turing test, and
Right.
this guy, I don't know his first name, but his last name was Turing, basically said that we've reached artificial intelligence once
we passed.
a
Yes.
computer can convince someone that it's real. That happens all the time, and it's been going on for years. So they've said, like, well, that's not really a good test.
Right.
Because you could be talking to people in a chat to fix your internet router and not realize it's a computer. So they've said, well, we may never, So the question is, what's the difference between intelligence and consciousness, right? And so that's easy from a religious perspective. It's like, hey, you have a soul. Your soul was created by God. Scientists who don't believe that there is such a thing as a soul are starting to say that with enough complexity, with enough parameters, consciousness will emerge. It's a consequence of a complex enough neural network.
Can you have intelligence without consciousness, or can you have consciousness without intelligence? So, yeah.
I don't know. I think you
How
can
many
have
people
intelligence.
do you meet that are not intelligent? And then we need to define intelligence.
Right.
So that's huge, because intelligence can mean different things to different people. I mean, they're getting rid of the IQ test because that doesn't hold any water anymore.
Right. So
Because
I guess
you know?
consciousness is the subjective experience of me. Like I this is something I feel it. Like it's one of those things like this thing is happening to me.
Yeah. I think we are AI, actually, and
Yeah.
this is crazy. Yeah, this is.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
So I'm so glad you're saying that. I mean,
yeah. No, I think we're AI, and we're just version. I don't know, whatever version we are of humans, and we're an experiment. And God is the ultimate
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
God is the ultimate scientist and architect, and so we're just here to know what's good and what's evil, and see if we're gonna pass that test.
See, I
'Cause
feel
I
feel
right?
like that's self-evident. Like if
Yes.
we're thinking machines that were created, then yes, of course
Right.
we're artificial intelligence. You know what I mean?
Yes. Right.
And so there's a lot of religious people who think that. There's a lot of atheists who
Yeah.
think that. And so
Yeah, we're so limited. We're AI. We're so limited. The moment, listen, I think, here's a Turing test. I think the moment we passed or we don't follow Newtonian laws, then we have transcended.
yeah. Let me make one last point, and then I want to talk about that. So the consensus in the AI community is that right now ChatGPT, and there's much more complex ones than ChatGPT. This is the free one that anyone can access.
I won't sleep tonight. Thank you, Trevor.
This has 150 million parameters. I actually looked that up earlier. So it said many millions, but it has 150 million. The only thing, this is what AI researchers believe, the only thing keeping this computational model from being sentient is the number of parameters. So at some point between 150 million and 100 trillion, which is almost incomprehensible gap, but that's us, that's a human. It will become conscious, self-aware, sentient.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I used to kind of laugh at that because I'm like, have you ever tried to use Siri? That's a joke. Like, but the more you mess around with this, it's like, okay, this was actually built on the same neural architecture as the human brain, at least to the best of our understanding. This has, I think, some very deep religious and moral implications.
Yeah, I highly recommend, because we're on the same subject, watch Ex Machina.
Oh, I just heard about that today. I heard it was a great movie.
I've seen it like 3 times. I think the screenplay, it's one of the best ones I've seen. I actually won an Oscar, but it's not like that means anything nowadays. But it's very powerful. Great movie, and it talks exactly about this. The created beings are being creators and things like that, and how it regenerates how we were created, and we killed our creator, and that tends to repeat in itself if you look at mainstream movies. I think movies are art, not all, but I appreciate art, and that's one way to convey an idea. So that's a good one, Trevor. And another one, it's called Her.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff.
That one looked very frightening.
It wasn't. It makes you think. I've seen also that twice. Great screenplay, and he talks about human emotion and what is human emotion, and how how AI can tap into and will tap into the human emotion and make you fall in love with an AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay,
that's great. Yeah.
So that's blowing my mind, and I want to tie this all back to something you said. I don't remember if it was last episode or the episode before. So kind of, you could probably already tell from our talk today that I I don't like to call things satanic, you know,
Right.
unless they seem evil, you know, because to me, that's what Satanism means. It means evil.
Hmm.
When I think of that, I think of evil. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing, right? To
Hmm.
associate those two. And
Hmm.
so when I hear, you know, just because they're building a Jewish synagogue next to a church that's Satanism, I'm like, I mean, seems a little harsh, right? AI, like playing around with this thing, I'm like, okay, if you want to tell me that this is satanic, I probably won't argue with you because you said to me last week or the week before that one of Lucifer's goals was to create life.
Hmm.
And so now we live in a society where all of these powerful forces are trying to create
Right.
artificial life. And I
Right.
don't think necessarily that Satan is a individual. It's a like a force or a feeling that lives within people, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. The
so
shadow.
yes, and so you have all these people working on this. Now, I don't personally like going down that rabbit hole because I think when you start demonizing real people, you know, who might start having real threats to their life and stuff, if you have
Yeah.
big
Which we
groups of
already have
people,
for since the beginning of time,
right?
demonizing people.
But
Right.
but you know, most of these people are just programmers, you know, working for whoever. That they're just trying to work. They're just trying to support their family, you know. So I don't want to call
Right.
everyone involved with this satanic. However, I
No.
think this is it's easy to make a case that what this is turning into has some religious implications, some big religious implications.
I
So
think it's just presenting you information, though. I don't think it's making assumptions of any kind.
this right now,
Right? I mean,
this no,
AI, yeah,
yeah,
it's just giving you what it's out there already in a synthetic
yeah,
way.
yeah. This is, I mean, this is not that big of a deal, but
You mean where we going?
well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you and I are artificial intelligence, which we are, we're created intelligent
Okay.
beings, right? We were
Yeah.
created. So I guess that makes us
Yes.
artificial. I mean, I guess it depends how you define
Right.
artificial, but we were
It is.
made.
Yeah, we were created. We did not create ourselves.
So
Yeah.
we're
Absolutely.
intelligent,
Absolutely.
thinking, feeling machines that were made. And that's what
Yeah.
we're now trying to do with this. We're trying to make
Yes.
thinking, feeling machines.
And I
And
think we can. I'm sorry, Trevor. And I
no,
think we can probably, after our guests, we can talk about the difference between what you're saying, which is very powerful. Well, or differentiating between Satan or Satanism and Luciferianism. Two
oh,
different
I
things.
don't know anything about that. So you'll have to tell me.
Yeah. So Lucifer and Satan, two different concepts. Very important, though.
Can you give me like a little bit of info about that? Because I'm going to wonder until the next time I talk to you.
Okay. So there was a change in status, right? So Lucifer was a created being as well.
An
And
angel, right?
an angel,
Okay.
a high in the hierarchy of angels.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ezekiel mentions that, I mean, throughout the Bible. And Isaiah also mentions that quite a bit. And he was casted. And so the name that he was giving here on earth is Satan, is the bad version of Lucifer.
Oh,
So
so
Lucifer
Lucifer
ceased to exist
was before.
and became
Okay.
right. So anyone that you or anywhere that you read Luciferian,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to convey the idea of when Satan was good or right next to God or talking to God.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, AKA Prometheus, AKA Horus, AKA Ra, AKA I mean he's known for hence the Olympics.
Wow.
I know. That's why we celebrate the Olympics. And we can go over that.
That could be a whole episode. And also, man, I really want to dive into the whole reptilian figure dispersing information concept that you brought up.
Man, that's a tough one to swallow.
I want to know about that because that seems like, again, I'm kind of an outsider looking in, but someone with a pretty kind of traditional upbringing, I would think would look at that idea as being very problematic, right? Because
It'll mess you up.
a reptile is kind of a serpent type of figure, right?
Yes.
And so,
Okay.
but it's
I can have some
undeniable that
pitch.
religions all over the world have that imagery. So what does that mean? Are those the sons of God that we hear about in
Oh, no, that's
Genesis?
Lucifer. No, that's Lucifer.
The
That's
reptile?
fallen- yeah, that's a fallen angel.
But that's the sons of God, right? Those were fallen angels.
The fallen angels.
In the first
Yeah. Well,
couple,
sons of God's created beings. Yeah, basically. Correct.
they were destroyed because they were evil, right? I mean, that was the whole idea.
The flesh part.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that kind of all ties that in together, like that whole ancient
Right.
apocalypse idea, right? That all kind of,
Right.
it all kind of
Right.
speaks to this world that used to exist here. That sounds really interesting.
Oh yeah, they had their stuff going on, and then it all went bye. Yeah.
All right. I did it again where I talked almost this entire time. That
No,
wasn't my
that's
intention.
fine. I think we went over our time.
I don't
Sorry,
even know
guys.
I don't even know what to title this. We've talked about so many.
Just let it sink a little bit, and then we'll choose a cool title. But yeah, I did not have high hopes for today's podcast because I've been in a rush, and then talking to you is just again open up my mind. Thank you.
This is a topic that I think needs to be like a recurring topic on our show because this there's something here. You know what I mean? This is more than just like NFTs or Ethereum. Like this is like, man, we're knocking on the door of something,
Right.
And this is being trained on relatively small data sets. When this thing gets unleashed on the internet and can consume the entire internet, it might take a month for it to do so.
Or less.
When it has that level of data, and when we can, 10x, 100x the number of parameters, so now it's starting to look like a human brain that has been educated on all the information in the world and doesn't have any limitations, like how fast it can read. It doesn't have any morals, right? So it's very objective, but that could be problematic.
Super.
I think this is going to be kind of like the theme of
we're in
the
the
next
frontier. Yeah,
100
we're in
years.
the frontier right now. Yes, we're in the frontier of that. So 3 movies: Ex Machina, Her, and one more, Transcendence, with Johnny Depp.
Oh, nice. What's that about?
Exactly your last words.
Really? Is it like transhumanism? Like, is that what it means by transcendence?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
transhumanism is kind of considered to be like evil, right?
It depends what glasses you're wearing.
Okay.
This is about a scientist who's trying to get there, and the scientist is Johnny Depp.
Okay.
Great movie, man. Yeah.
I just, if they,
Worth watching.
if there's these things that are like our eternal souls are on the line, I just wish we had like clear guidance.
Well, that's the ultimate. Yeah. Well, no.
But people would say the Bible is the guidance,
have
right?
that because then we won't have freedom of choice.
Yeah,
You
but
see.
if you don't even really know it's good or bad, I mean, because you could easily, it would not be difficult to view this as an incredibly positive thing that could save lives, cure disease.
True. But remember, what's the cat in the hat? What's his
Dr.
the
Seuss.
actor's name? Yeah, Dr. Seuss. But the guy who played that. Oh my God.
Oh, I don't know.
No, not Seth Meyers, but
Played who? The Cat in the
I'm so
Hat?
sorry if someone is listening. Yeah, the guy who played Cat in the Hat.
Oh man, I don't know.
I'm so
Is
sorry.
it Mike
for that.
Myers?
Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Like Mike Myers said, what Bible stands for. Remember?
No.
Basic instructions before leaving Earth.
I like that. Hey, I mean, yeah, I'll take. Yeah, this is all such interesting topics, man. So I'm happy that I have you. We can hash this stuff out,
Likewise.
and maybe we'll start having these discussions with third parties so we can get some more insight, some more brain power. You've been dropping some serious quotes. So I have a quote for you, and then we'll wrap up.
Let's do it.
I guess I should have remembered what the quote was before I said that. So, some men see things how they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not. Have you heard that?
No, who said that?
Well, I heard it in a song and I thought, man, that is a good quote.
Oh, that's powerful.
Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not. So I looked it up, and it says John F. Kennedy and then later Robert F. Kennedy, but actually it was said way before that. And it's relevant to our conversation. George Bernard Shaw, who I don't know very much about, I think he was a pretty not good guy. I don't know. I think he had some interesting ideas about the type of stuff we're talking about. I really don't know. I shouldn't have besmirched him, but that was said by a character in one of his stories, and that character was Lucifer. So that is kind of interesting because it sounds on its face, it sounds like such a pot. And I guess like you're saying, if it's Lucifer, maybe that was before he was evil, but I've never heard of that. I just consider that name, I think, evil when I hear either name, but
That is
you
amazing.
hear that, it seems like such a powerful message, but in the context of what we're talking about, AI, dreaming things that are never possible and asking why not. And that type
Right.
of sentiment came from, now, an imaginary character in this case, named Lucifer. But anyway, man, we've got lots to unravel. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Do you have anything else for
Yes.
us, Alfredo? Do you have anything else
That
for
was
us?
really good.
Okay.
Oh, no, for next episode. For
Anything.
Sure. For sure.
Join us next time. Our website is ourphilosophia.com. We're on Apple, Spotify. We are Philo Sophia, 2 words with a black and white logo. Although if you're here listening to my voice, you already figured that out. So not sure how helpful that would be.
That's right.
All right, everybody. See you
All right.
next time.
Have a good